If you have offended someone, good. That means you've stood up for yourself. Churchill was dead on point with that bit of wisdom. There's been a lot of discussion on whether people need to turn their works over to certain freelance editors that will go through it and scrub it free of anything they find offensive. Of course, with what is offensive being completely subjective, you will end up with only things the sensitivity reader objects to being flagged. Which means if your audience isn't offended by that content, you removed a chunk of what people you were writing for wanted. So forget the sensitivity reader. Go for the awesomeness editor instead. People want to see and read about idealized versions of their cultures and themselves. This is a trait of humanity. It's not recent. You're not going to find fat Spartans on a Grecian urn. If the statues of the Roman emperors are accurate, Trajan would have whooped my ass at the age of 60 with his python biceps and that six-pack they sculpted him with. Our personifications are flawless. They always have been. We want our culture represented as heroic, impressive, and inspiring. Give it to them. If you want to write about a culture that isn't your own and do it justice, find someone you trust to give you honest opinions on how to improve it. Then take notes how they're going to make those characters more awesome. Your Arabic character is going to be transformed into the lion of the desert, standing in the saddle, dual-wielding scimitars and showing off his perfectly coiffed chest hair. I know this because I asked people from that area, and that's what they told me. Asking someone from Japan how to make a samurai better will result in a character that makes Miramoto Musashi look like a half-rate hibachi chef. It's always the same. As long as you do your research into their culture, once you've got their basics, they want to see the epic adventures your characters will embark on. Everybody remembers Prince Philip gutting Maleficent like a fish in the cartoon. Nobody cares about the boring milquetoast imposter in the live-action version. Present your characters as larger than life. Don't shy from it. Embrace it. People love to see characters they can identify with, being far more capable than they are. They want somebody that they can live through vicariously. Look at the much-maligned combat wheelchair. It removes the limitations unacceptable to the person in it. It can fly upstairs, it can't be knocked over, it can fight on its own. At its most extreme, it's just another version of legs with no drawbacks. Instead of using magic that restores their legs, or gives them working prosthetic legs, or any number of plot devices that give full function to the character, they want to be in the wheelchair that removes the disability but not the pathos of it. There are people that want a character to appear disabled but not have any actual disability. It makes them special. You've seen it before. The blind man that hears so well they don't need eyes. The blind ninja master is an old stereotype that everyone is familiar with. The problem is with the prefix dis. It means you don't have something. If you're dissatisfied, you don't have satisfaction. If you have a disagreement, you don't have an agreement. If your shoulder is dislocated, it's not located where it should be. If you have a disability, you lack that ability. It's not a bad thing to have a character that can't do what others can. The disability can be represented as a challenge where they don't have anything to compensate for it. It could be purely cosmetic, especially when there's a prosthetic or similar which eliminates the problem, like the silver-armed smith Theros Ironfield in Dragonlance. And then you've got the people that not only eliminate the problem, but then use it to point out how disadvantaged they are despite being better off with their replacement. These are poorly written characters, and you need to avoid them. No challenge to the character, no thrill for the reader. Say it with me. Don't worry about offending people incidentally. You're going to. That's a fact of life for a writer. It's also a good sign for a writer that you're putting emotion into your work. People don't get angry over bad literature or games. They either just put them down or they mock them. Go to a writer's board and ask people there what their favorite passage from 50 Shades of Grey is. Or go to an RPG forum and ask about the world of Cinnabar. Terrible stuff doesn't draw ire. It's not worth the reader's time. If your stuff is truly offensive, then any random person reading it is going to let you know immediately. You can't please everybody. Don't even try. If you aim to make everybody happy, you're going to end up with a watered-down product that satisfies no one. That's why you need an awesomeness editor. People remember good. People remember bad. People forget average. Quick, what's your favorite 2.5-star movie? Get someone to insert awesomeness into your work and get your game out of just being average. Don't restrict yourself either. The more that is possible in your game, the more your players will enjoy it. Some freelance editors will tell you that because of past oppression, you can't make certain people into villains. Yet these people have no problem making Slavs and Irish ripoffs a constant source of villainy. Here's a suggestion. Never get into an oppression Olympics pissing match with an Eastern European. They invented the word slave, and they have served as target practice for just about every army conquer land since the Italians first went out looking for real estate. And also don't confuse them for Russian. That will save you money on emergency dental bills. Trust me on this one. People have told me you can't always make a specific group the villains in every story. Let me introduce you to the English. Between Alan Rickman, Jeremy Irons, Mark Strong, Tom Hiddleston, David Warner, Gary Oldman, Ralph Fiennes, Malcolm McDowell, Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, Eva Green, Lena Headey, Angela Lansbury, Helena Bonham Carter, Daniel Day-Lewis, Laurence Olivier, Ben Kingsley, Terrence Stamp, James Mason, and Donald Pleasance, they're constantly being made the bad guy in everything. Need a German terrorist to take over a Christmas party? Hire a Brit. How about a psychopathic megacity one crime boss? Brit. Nationalistic New York gang leader? Brit. How about one of the worst Nazis to ever live? Brit. A sadistic far future CEO with a drawl? Brit. Every group, culture, and ethnicity has people we aren't proud of. Ones we'd prefer not to talk about, but they make great inspiration for villains. Taking the worst of the worst, no matter who they represent in real life, and porting over their actions into your villains makes designing your game easier. Nothing is off limits for a villain. That's why they're the villain. I could keep going with examples of English actors who have played fantastic villains, but I've already cut the original list in half and I had to stop somewhere. Oliver Reed. If you want an acceptable villain from a group you aren't familiar with, ask your Awesomeness editor. Everyone can tell you of someone from their culture that did horrible things, and since we want the stories of our people told, we are glad to share. I myself have ancestors from a ton of different cultures. I'm a Limey, a Git, a Mick, a Taffy, a Tonto, a Kraut, a Clogger, and I'm a Texan on top of all of that. If you need inspiration from any of those groups, I would be more than happy to fill you in. All you have to do is ask. And I'm not the exception. Everybody has the heroes they grew up hearing about. They will be more than happy to tell you about them. Even if it's just a name and a half-remembered deed, it gives you someone you can look up later for more inspiration. Do it. Julian Glover. Grab as many Awesomeness editors as you can when you're making your adventure, not just for cultural references. They can help make your adventure or campaign far more memorable. Need a battle scene for a big part of your epic? Someone knows of some epic last stand or obscure battle that you can crib for notes. It doesn't have to be a major event like Thermopylae or the Winged Hussars at Vienna. It can be oddball events that the characters will remember, like when the U.S. Army and the Wehrmacht teamed up to save a bunch of horses from the SS, or Shaka Zulu conquering a neighboring tribe by trickery by forging proof of a mutual bloodline to gain their support. If you can't find an Awesomeness editor, check online resources. Someone will always be happy to share this information with you because it's a sign of respect for their culture. Helen Mirren! Before you start looking for your editors, get your basic premise together. If you know you want to use cultures you aren't familiar with, keep your details bare-boned, but still do your research. You'll find the most famous people of the culture easily enough, as well as some historical events, and this knowledge gives you something to approach the Awesomeness editors with. You've got a lot of Facebook and Reddit groups that are devoted to history and culture, and if you tell them you've got your start but need help going the rest of the way, they will jump on the chance to fill in the blanks. Take notes. Get more information than you can use and take everything under advisement. It's easier to cut than pad, and if you have more than you need, you can save the rest for the next adventure. Christopher Eccleston! Details are important. Remember the things that stick out from what your editors are telling you. Cultures tend to have some detail that define them. You don't have to copy it, but you can take the inspiration and alter it. The wings of the Hussars, the face masks of the samurai, the war paint of the Comanches, the rear window rifle racks for the Oklahomans. Note the little details. It adds authenticity to your creation. The editors will know the little details and will suggest them to you if you just ask. They can give you the proper terminology, appropriate suggestions for period-correct tools or food, and of course all the authentic slang and profanity you'll ever need. Sean Hurt! You want your adventure or story to appeal to as many people as possible. Having someone removing everything that offends them isn't going to help you. Too many of these people speak only for themselves, and assume their opinion applies to the entire group they claim to represent. Ignore these people. Don't return their calls, ignore their emails, and for God's sakes, don't pay them a cent. But remember, they threaten to review bomb your released adventure. That's not blackmail. Blackmail is threatening to reveal damaging information unless a payment is made. Threatening someone's well-being unless money is paid in advance, that's extortion. Jason Isaacs! If somebody does demand that you turn over your hard work to them so they can make your work palatable just to them, kindly inform them that you already have Awesomeness editors who are going to make your adventure the stuff of legends with its over-the-top bravado and action. So you don't need them at all, and they are now irrelevant and unneeded. Then just hang up. Don't blow an air horn into the phone. Modern phones have volume filters that prevent the full wrath of someone who just got called by the 7th telemarketer in 2 hours wanting to sell me overpriced health insurance, but haven't even begun to notice I've only been speaking Welsh since I picked up the phone, because they immediately launch into their pitch without bothering to ask what the hell Shemai Pudihi means. Not that I would know. Basil Rathbone! Since the Awesomeness editor is a new concept, be sure and remember that if you get your adventure finished, put them in the book. I would suggest putting them in the credits as the Awesomeness editor, Possibly put their area of expertise in parentheses so other people might want to ask them for advice. If it's a group, give credit to the page that gave you the information that you needed to make your adventure large and memorable. You definitely need to give them a copy of your game if you're looking to publish it, though many of the people I used weren't even gamers. Tom was just happy that someone asked him looking for advice on the Northwest Pacific Indian tribes. Asking about ancient Nordic folklore got me turned into an honorary Finn. There's a table setting waiting for me in Honduras if I ever wanted to visit for Dia del Soldado. Each one of these Awesomeness editors not only gave me their history, but also told me how they would do it in the story to make the impact of that part of their culture memorable, but only in the most awesome way possible. Anthony Hopkins. Until next time, rule! Rule Britannia! Britannia rules the waves! Sing! Sing, my limey cousins! You know the words! You were born knowing these words! Sing!